Welcome to Bits and Bytes Live, the series of short conversations where we talk about things of interest to the service provider community. Myself, Nigel Stevenson, Director of Market Development for EMEA within the service provider and Edge business unit at VMware. So I'll be the host for this call, and we'll be talking about private 5G. And I'm delighted to have a great range of guests to talk with me about that. We have Gabby Guri who is CTO at ASOCS. We have David O'Byrne, who is Senior Development Manager at Druid Software, and Rem Venkataramani, who is our Senior Director of Solutions within the same BU as myself, Service Provider and Edge Business Unit at VMware. So first of all, welcome, gentlemen. Thank you very much for taking the time to join me on this call. So as I say, we're going to talk about private 5G, an interesting topic. It was certainly, according to some of the analyst reports, it was one of the key stories at Mobile World Congress that we've just come back from. I think personally there were many key stories at Mobile World Congress, but certainly private 5G is one of them. Obviously very important to the enterprise community. So I'm going to start with yourself, Ram, if I may, and ask you, can you help set the scene? Why do we need private 5G versus other LAN technologies? What problems are we trying to solve, or is the CIO trying to solve, really? And how does it fit alongside other, what you might call edge-delivered services? Can you give us a bit of a background there?
Sure. First of all, thanks a lot, Nigel, for setting this up, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all of you. So what's happening in the industry is, if you look at what's happening in the industry, most of the enterprises are initiating a new paradigm shift, which is called the edge digital transformation. So as part of this digital transformation, one of the key things that they are coming to rely upon is developing edge native workloads, which are designed to run in the enterprise premises. And what that requires is a rethinking of your compute and networking requirements at the enterprise prem. So most of the current deployments, if you look at the current use cases, both in the industrial manufacturing sector or be in the healthcare or be in the hospitality segment, they are all running either on wired connectivity or on Wi-Fi connectivity, which has kind of served their needs for the current generation of use cases. But as we start looking through the new use cases that this digital transformation is expected to bring about, the Wi-Fi and the wired connections are not going to be sufficient enough. For example, it doesn't have a good enough mobility aspect, right? If you have a autonomous guided vehicle moving from one location to another location, how do you provide continuous connectivity? So things like that, right? So Wi-Fi is not able to provide, and that's where the private mobile networks comes in handy. It provides mobility aspect in addition to providing some dedicated SLA or dedicated quality of service, which a mobile network can provide, which the other networks cannot provide.
Okay, cool. And we'll talk a little bit later about case studies as well, which will probably bring it a bit more of what you're saying to life, as it were. So another question for you, Ram, then. If we're going to talk about private 5G on this call, but the reason we're talking about this is because you run a team of people that work very directly with our ecosystem of partners, where we, key partners like ASOCS, like Druid, and work to build solutions within and with the ecosystem. So can you tell us a little bit about, if you like, how did we get here? What is that program you're running? What is it generally that you're looking to do through the solutions team at VMware?
Thank you, Nigel. That's an excellent question, right? So, as most of you all know, VMware is primarily a platform provider, right? So, we have been spearheading the virtualization arena, and then now into the cloud native aspect as well. We provide a lot of platform capabilities that kind of fuel the enterprise workloads, either be it in the private cloud or in the public cloud. Now, one of the key things that we want to achieve as part of the solutions team is to leverage this underlying platform, but to develop end-to-end solutions that our enterprise customers can consume with a degree of confidence, right? So if you already have a solution for specific use cases that has been developed with specific partners, with the reference architecture along with it, with the test bed, with the demo capability, etc., then our enterprises, when they start to look at our platform as the primary underlying stack, then they have a little bit more confidence than going with someone else's platform. So that's the primary motivating factor. And here we have a very good example of such a solution with both ASOCS and Druid in this call today.
So kind of giving that, so I suppose that we're kind of solving one of the challenges that we've almost self-created, right? Because as we disaggregate networks, we've got to reassemble them in some way. And so you're looking at that reassembly and making sure that becomes as risk-free and as easy to adopt as possible. So that way you get the benefits of the whole point of disaggregation, I guess. So great lead in. Thank you for that. So one of the things that I know that you guys and the team and the partners have done have created this validated design for private 5G services. So with that, I'd like to come across to you, Gabby, and that validated design that we're talking about is a combination of VMware and ASOCS and Druid. So, Gabby, from an ASOCS point of view, maybe for people who are not familiar with ASOCS, perhaps just say a few words about who ASOCS are, a bit about your involvement in the RAN space would be interesting. But then also, can you tell us what are the pieces of technology that ASOCS is providing to this design? And what is their function? What is it, the piece that you're providing in this design?
Okay, thank you, Nigel. We started at ASOCS our journey into virtual RAN or virtual base station about 10 years ago. It was in the LTE days. We introduced our first software-only 5G system in 2019. And in 2020, we deployed our first industrial 5G system in the field. Unlike most of the companies that start their journey via a non-standalone mode, we directly started with standalone, targeting the industrial use case.
Okay.
Our solution is, first of all, fully software. There is no acceleration unit, hardware acceleration, FPGA chip of any kind. We are running on full virtualization system. In this case, it's the VMware platform. And we can connect via the ORAN frontal to any ORU in the market. Indoor, outdoor, high power, low power, in various frequency band and so on. So it is a quite flexible system that can be scaled from a very small factory out to huge projects. As I mentioned today, we are concentrating in the industry 4.0 and their special needs from the 5G infrastructure.
Okay, so 4G, that's being the manufacturing sector, then essentially that is a key focus for you. And the solution and the pieces you're doing, you're very much at the edge. So you're looking at the distributed RAN components, the CU/DU pieces that are right out there, as you say, connecting basically into the radio unit. So that's the section that the solution that you guys are covering.
Yes, we are providing the CU and the DU, connected to the core, to the Druid core, everything run on top of the VMware platform, connected to external RU that can be supplied by any vendor.
Excellent, and that brings me nicely to you, David. So the other part of that picture, if I suppose from a platform point of view, at the application level, you might say, is that core, the mobile core, and that's where Druid come in, yeah. So perhaps a little bit about, again, same thing, question really, a little bit about who Druid are, where you guys, or how you delivered into this mobile networking industry, and specifically the piece that you're delivering in this private 5G design.
You're muted.
You look like you're muted, David.
Thanks,
we had to
Gabby.
get that in there. We had to get the you're on mute in there.
We knew that would happen, right? So Druid's been around for 20 years, actually, and we didn't start with NSA. We started back in 2G world, and got into this whole area developing private network cores for in-flight cellular back in the early 2000s. So we're a long time in putting cellular networks in difficult to reach places. And over the last 20 years, we've refined that product to include 3G and then 4G and then most recently 5G. And it's all in the same binary. So all of that functionality is available to all of the customers who are taking this VMware solution. And we've, as a spectrum has become more available, we have been able to move from in-flight or solutions that were on oil rigs or cruise ships that were using satellite for backhaul into patrol solutions, public safety solutions. And then with the CBRS auction in the US in 2018, we managed to come onshore and into civilized society and start to do solutions in the urban world. And then, of course, with 5G, that's only increasing. So now our remit has gone from being really traditional engineering areas like oil, gas, mining, and maritime into being sort of the other end of the industrial spectrum, where it's really all about precision manufacturing, high-speed manufacturing, and really bringing AI into the workplace. I think in a nutshell, what the core does, it's for us, it's more than just switching the packets and connecting the different devices and the different calls on it. The core is really the heart and soul of the network, and that is where the end user will be able to use the core user interface, which we have spent a lot of time and effort making very, very simple, very user intuitive and user friendly. That's where the end users will be able to harness all of the potential that 3GPP brings them in terms of network slicing, ultra low latency, massive mobile connectivity, massive broadband, to bring things like machine visualization, artificial intelligence, autonomous vehicles, robots, all of these fantastic initiatives and innovations that are coming along that need this powerful network. The solution that we're putting together with ASOCS and VMware not only has the horsepower to really deliver a terrific network to bring this to industry and make it accessible for them, but also we're doing it in a very simple and intuitive way so that end customers can have confidence that this is not a solution that they're going to have a huge management overhead with, or they're going to need a lot of extra technical bots to support. So we're trying to simplify and demystify all of the potential of Industry 4.0.
Excellent. And I was thinking as you're talking there, and of course, this is all based on Open RAN, right? So this is the ability to do this, to bring the best of breed partners together. I mean, here we're talking about private 5G. There are other potential services that could run at the edge as well. But that opening up and standardizing of the interface is really allowing players like yourselves to go from one part of the industry to another and bring those skill sets with them, which is something that as an industry we've probably been lacking in the past. So I mean, this is a kind of living example of what it means to open up those environments. So thank you for that, though, and Gabby. Let's come back to you, Ram, and just to close the look full cycle, because we've looked at the RAN element that's running over the top, and we've alluded to it running on the platform. Gabby talked about it running on the platform. So what's VMware's role in this, and why does what we are doing matter in this context?
Great question, Nigel. So as I said in the opening remarks, right? So what VMware really sees is a edge digital transformation that is going on in the enterprise community. So in order to fuel that transformation, VMware in last VMworld in 2021, we announced a new product called as Edge Compute Stack. Right, so which essentially becomes the foundation layer for any native workloads being deployed at the edge at the enterprise prem. So what we are really doing in this particular collaboration with ASOCS and ASOCS and Druid is to leverage that as the underlying platform, Edge Compute Stack as the underlying platform. Use the ASOCS ORAN compliant software as the 5G RAN software with the Druid packet core, all of them running on the same compute stack, and be deployed in a customer prem with the management simplicity that the enterprises really seek for right now. The additional advantage that this provides, which is very unique to this overall offering over here, is that the same edge compute stack can be leveraged to run any other third-party application. So if a hospital wants to run some of their own internal applications, or if a retail store wants to run a point of sale application, the same stack can accommodate those applications as well. So you're not going to have bespoke solutions, one for private 5G, one for point of sale, another for computer vision, security, things like that. So that's the intention over here, and what we have done as part of my team's task over here is to create a reference architecture with this particular design, which then our system integrator partners will essentially take over and roll it out into our enterprise customer sites.
So that platform first approach is where we would like to think we bring some unique value. Although we're talking about private 5G, which is a service in its own right with its own value, it doesn't have to be the only service. So if you're looking at it from an operator point of view, if you want to push edge services, MEC, the same underlying infrastructure could support that is kind of what we're saying. Yeah?
That's exactly correct. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. So I think David touched on some of the interesting use cases just based on the history of where Druid had come from. Gabby, I know you mentioned Industry 4.0 earlier. So can you put some sort of color on some of the services and the ways people are adopting private 5G based on the experience that you're having with end customers? You're on mute, by the way, before I have to say, can you come off mute?
Oops. We believe that the first users of the 5G technology in private network will be automotive and electronic manufacturing sites. Those users will try to use the video, high bandwidth video with AI application in order to use application related to safety, to quality assurance, to add mobility features related to AVG, to drones, massive data for digital twins. Those will be the areas in which those companies will use the 5G infrastructure. Okay.
And I don't know, David or Ram, have you got any other thoughts on areas, use cases that you're seeing or you feel will be coming that are particularly relevant to 5G? David?
I think Gabby called out a lot of the interesting use cases there, and visualization, machine visualization is a massive one. I'm really personally excited about augmented reality. Which is difficult to do if you don't have a really powerful network. But some of the problems that industry are facing right now is around the transfer of knowledge from retirees to new employees, and there is a skills shortage in almost every industry vertical that we're working at. And a lot of companies are starting to use the concept of an AR headset or AR as a training guide, and then as a day-to-day working guide, as a coaching guide, where you're using the AR to access information on how things should look, while you're also looking at them in real life to see what's wrong with them. Or potentially you're just using the camera in the AR headset to connect back to a semi-retired senior employee whose job now is no longer being out on an oil rig or being in a factory floor or being in a mine. It's sitting in his air-conditioned couch, but taking calls from the young bucks and saying, nope, that's not how it's supposed to be. You should turn that thing to 0 or turn it to 1 and see what happens. Right. So there's an awful lot of really interesting real-life use cases that are running on top of the networks.
It reminds me, we had it in a slightly different context. We've just come back from MWC on the VMware booth there. We had some really interesting, what I'd call experiential type demonstrations. So we had the technology demonstrations, but in terms of how does it appear to the likes of you and I in our everyday life, we had one of the things we had was a retail application with an AR mirror, so you could in augmented reality, if it was your whim, you'd experiment with makeup, which was one option, which provided some entertainment, and you could try on different sunglasses and things, so all with augmented reality. So you're not actually doing it, you're just seeing your reflection, but it's being adapted in real time. And of course, to do that, actually you need a few things. You need the power of the edge compute piece, because you're not going to do that on a laptop under the counter, but you also then need that high speed, low latency connection, the attributes of 5G. So it's quite interesting. So we had that. We also had a really interesting learning application, which is actually born out of a piece of work done at Coventry University, which is live, where medical students can be taught by going inside the human body with the lecturer and experiencing in a visual way how things like viruses propagate and stuff like that. So, and again, having the ability to stream that type of information is something that we perhaps not had before. Interesting point. Ram, I don't know if I know you get involved with some customer scenarios as well. Have you got anything to add before we close out?
Sure. So I want to pick up on what both Gabby and David mentioned. So one of the use cases that we had been talking to with our customers is in the automotive sector. So one is the industrial automation. How do you really use private 5G to improvise your manufacturing operations? So there are some use cases that both of them talked about. But I want to talk about another use case where, let's say, there is a test track where most of these automotive companies are going to test their vehicles, right? And today, what really happens is there are a lot of sensors that are built into the automobiles, but they collect these metrics, and these metrics are all locally stored and then transferred once the car or the automobile comes to the shop. Now, what private 5G provides is for these automotive manufacturers to understand the metric, collect the metric in real time and see how it is working, right? For real-time tuning of the control systems that they have built into the automobiles itself. So that is one use case. Now, this is a little bit of a high-tech kind of a use case, but there is also a equal low-tech use case where private 5G is extremely valuable. Like if you look in US, for example, we are now in conversations with a customer where they want to provide rural mobile broadband. I mean, these are rural households which are distributed deep into the countryside. None of the major telecom manufacturers are interested in providing a high-quality mobile broadband service to these homes. And now the cities are looking at extending the mobile broadband connectivity to these homes by leveraging CBRS spectrum and leveraging private 5G as the underlying mobile network. So you see a cross section of use cases that is cropping up in the marketplace today, which is relying on private mobility.
Excellent, and it's only going to go onwards. I think it's as we discover more use cases to use the character. I mean, essentially, what we're doing, we have now a network option which has different characteristics, right? With the performance, the latency, the security, ease of use, etc. So I think, yeah, we're going to see more and more ways of interpreting what that can offer for companies. But great to talk to you guys. Thank you ever so much for coming on the call. It was really interesting. I think we'll talk more about it. I think it's generally accepted we're in the early stage of private 5G, so it's still in the taking off phase. So I'm sure we'll come back to this. And again, thank you all very much for your help. You'll see, for those watching on the ticker, there's been some URLs there for blogs and the website. We can make sure those are in the comments as well on LinkedIn, so that people can follow that, and feel free to reach out to any of us through LinkedIn or otherwise if people want more information. But for now, Ram, Gabby, David, thank you very much. Thank you for those listening. I hope you find that interesting. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Nigel. Thanks, guys.